So, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Yes. So, I'm Baroness Tamara von Stein zu Leitershofen. Friends
Per-
call me Tamara.
Perfect. And this, some of the questions I've got is sort of some not the usual interview questions. I want to sort of make it a bit more light-hearted and a bit more of a chat. So, would you be able to tell us two truths and one lie about yourself that my audience can guess?
Okay. I have family members who lived in a castle. I flew on a dragon and I danced with a prince once.
Amazing. And would you be able to describe your show in 23 words? I know it's a very random number, but
Oh. I don't know how many words that is, but in general, I say it's a rags. It's a riches to rags story. It's an opera pasticcio for the opera curious and the curious opera lover.
perfect, thank you. So, what are your sort of plans like when you're in Edinburgh to get more ticket sales? So, like flyering, social media.
That is a really interesting question because what I'm doing is it's a show that is designed specifically for people who have never been to an opera, but are actually interested in going to an opera, but maybe don't want to sit through 3 hours of a Handel opera or 3.5 hours Mozart. The shorter ones are things like La Boheme, um, even La Traviata is quite long. So it is quite long. For some people, it's quite daunting. It's very specific for this country that people have a very weird idea about classical music. So I grew up in Europe, and in general, in Europe, classical music is just a type of music, like jazz, like rock, like punk. And there is a lot of crossover, and people would go equally to a rock concert, us to an opera, us to a jazz club, us to maybe a punk night somewhere. So, or rave. So this idea that it's elitist, which is so ridiculous. I mean, I live on a southeast London council estate. I'm in one of the five poorest parts of England. We have 40% of people living under the poverty line, and I'm doing opera. But also, I find it very hard to get people to accept that opera is for them. There is an inner block, so I'm trying to remove this threshold fear that people think, oh, I can't go there. And this is something that is very strong in the British class system, but I think it also has something to do with Protestantism, because I lived in other countries and Protestant countries, and I find that there is this idea you've been put, so this is the predetermination that comes with Protestantism. You're put on this earth in a certain position and you stay there, you don't move. While obviously if you go from a theological point of view, the Christian teaching is we're all the same. So there is no difference between me and Paul who lives next door or Christine who lives next door. So there is no reason why music isn't for everyone. And so this is a very specific problem in Britain, and I'm trying to counteract it. So I want people to just have a go at it. So the marketing is more like to get people in and then have a look at it. So it's trying to be intriguing. And this is part of the reason, the whole idea with the princess outfit, the whole, I mean, it's a joke. You know, obviously I'm working class. I'm talking to you from a council house in Southeast London. I'm the sort of person who can't put the heating on in winter. I don't, I have to go in, into the shop an hour before it closes to get, reduced items for 10p or something. So this is really the idea is to make people think, that looks interesting. It's not expensive. I'm free just before lunch because all my things I've booked are for the afternoon because that depends what happens. Um, so I go and give it a go. So be intriguing.
Yeah, that sounds good. Is I personally don't really know much opera. I listen to more I know this is cliche, I listen to more like theatre music. But then a lot of you said people are unsure of like opera. The only thing that's sort of close to that is like Phantom and then Les Mis. It's not opera, but it's more classical bass. It's not like say Six or like my brain's gone. Uh,
No, I mean I know what you mean. I mean it's not. I can't actually like it's not the Rocky Horror Show.
yeah,
You know, it's not. I mean, which is fabulous. I mean, if you saw the tour that's just been round, it's just one of the um greatest versions of that show I've ever seen. Um, but also, for example, Jerry Springer the opera, that is very much a crossover. And I went to see Anna Nicole, the opera about Anna Nicole Smith, and I was very unsure when I went to see it. So that's been quite a few years ago now. And it's that opera that actually destroyed the city, New York City Opera, because Afanda knew Anna Nicole's husband, and um, he withdrew the funding because he thought it was a bit too close to home, and that made the opera company collapse because the artistic director said, "No, this is an important work. I will put it on." Anna Nicole was written by a composer and a librettist, and the librettist was the composer of Jerry Springer the opera. And this is quite interesting. You get composers who write librettos. You have that with Boito, who wrote for Verdi, but also written an opera himself. And you find that with some people. So when I saw Anna Nicole, I looked at the composer and thought, oh, I've seen the Silver Tassi, and I didn't need that much. It's a football story. And I saw Jerry Springer the opera. So I bought one ticket for the first night for the world premiere, and I was blown away. It was absolutely amazing. So, and like you say with musicals, because musical has now such a long history, that's good 100
yeah.
years, and it came out of operetta, and operetta came out of the Singspiel, and that's going back now 200 years. So because we have this long history, there is now a much wider variety of music styles. That part of the musical canon.
Yeah.
You have the same in opera. So you go to one opera, it's like going to one musical. That doesn't mean, even if you don't like it, you don't like that particular style, that particular piece. Doesn't mean you like the whole thing. In opera, we have 400 years, and we have works played that are 400 years old. So I just think people should just give it a go. But
Oh,
like you say,
definitely.
yes, there is crossover.
Oh, definitely. It's just like some people say they don't like say. I'll give you my example. I'm not over keen on Hamilton. Like that, it just doesn't gel with me. Like I like a couple songs, but then I really like Les Mis and Wicked and Phantom and Six. So everybody's got their own taste, and there is always something for everybody. It's
Yeah.
not just like people think, oh, I won't like a musical. You'll always find something that you like, whatever it is. It might be like the Rocky Horror Show. It might be like Jersey Boys. It might be something else. There's always something for something in theatre, or it might be a play. It could be like the Mousetrap or the play that goes wrong. So there's
Yeah.
also
I mean, the thing is, you might not like, for example, um, Kit Marlowe's work, but you like Shakespeare, and they're near contemporaries. Well, they lived together, lived at the same time. Some people say even it's the same person. I disagree on that. Um, but for example, you might not like Webster, but you might like Shakespeare. Then you go further. You might like someone from this frame, but you don't like Stockhausen. So yes, you might. You have to go out and find. I think this is part of the problem that people have been given too much responsibility to sort out themselves. And I think in this century, we are more comfortable, especially younger generation, to fit in and to tick boxes and to be labeled. And the fluidity that my generation had, so I was born in 77, so I'm quite old, and I sort of at the end of the X, at the beginning of the millennials, and it's this sort of weird blob in the middle, very low birth rates across the continent, and there are very few of us around. So we were a generation, we were sort of never fitting in, and we all had to sort of mix and match. And I really noticed that when I was in school, it was absolutely okay to be yourself, and people were still friendly. And it didn't matter if you were punk or if you were goth, or if you. I had a classmate, she liked ballroom dancing, and I liked opera. And people would maybe say, "Oh, yeah, a bit freakish," but it's your stuff. You do your thing, and no one bothered. There was no bullying. You know, it was just like be yourself. And I feel that has sort of been taken away from the younger generation because you have to keep up with the Joneses and you have to tick boxes. And it's for example, I'm seeing the pride flag behind you, and
Yeah.
I I remember a time when being gay sex was still technically illegal. It had been decriminalized in Germany, but the law, it's a paragraph 175. It's a very old law. It's from before the Federal Republic was even founded, and it was still on the statute books, and it was not rescinded till 1994. And I had gay members in their family, and I mean they're still around, they're still gay, they haven't changed in the last 40 years. But I remember the gay pride, which we call Christopher Street Day in Germany for obvious reasons. And I actually preferred called CSD than Pride because it remembers the people who died. But um, we had maybe 100 people, and the only people who were watching were family members, and at that time, sadly, mostly just the women, just the mothers and the sisters. And obviously, the AIDS pandemic was going on, and no proper treatment in those days, and people were just dying like flies. You go through old family photo albums, from the time they had parties, and one third is dead. Um, so it was a very different time, and you look at it today, and we have all the different tribes. And so I'm a straight woman, but I'm now classified as queer and have 5 flags to choose from. And I'm actually never felt till very recently that the way my sexuality is, i.e., demisexual, which in the old days was just considered normal, your way,
Mm.
that's it. Now it's considered weird, and I have to explain myself. And it goes to a point where if I go to the NHS and I'm severely disabled, so I'm often talking to various consultants, I have to explain my sexuality and defend my sexuality that I wouldn't have had to defend 50 years ago or 30 years ago.
Mm.
And this is a bit of a problem. And I think this is the tick box exercise. Everyone has to fit a label, and they say, "Oh, we do it for diversity." And I think maybe just accept people as they are and don't try to classify them. And I think the classification is a bit of a problem. And you see that maybe with you're much younger than I, with the younger generation. Oh, if you like this type of music, you're not allowed to like the other type of music. And of course, I'm not saying to anyone, stop liking what you like. Come to
Yeah.
see my show, and then maybe you like bits of that as well. And like you say, you like some songs of Hammerstein. You might like some songs of, I don't know, Puccini or Verdi. Because it's good
I
music.
don't.
Not
I
everything
don't.
is.
There's so many types of music, and everybody will like different. Like even if it's just a couple of songs or um like tracks from something, there's so much to choose from. We are so lucky. Like I'm a Beatles fan as well, so I thought, and that's not even in my era at all. Is there's just so much, so many music. So when you're in Edinburgh, what will you miss when you're away from home?
Probably my bed and my garden. Um, I have a very small bed, and I'm a bit like a cat. I like to sleep in a box, so it has um, wood around it, all, but apart from one side. And so this is interesting. My friend has the same mattress in the other room, and she says, "Oh, it's so hard, it's so hard," and I find it fairly soft. If I go away, the mattresses are very hard, and because of my disability, um, it's quite painful. So this is not what I'm looking forward to. I will miss my bathtub. I love having hot magnesium salt baths. This has again to do with my disability because sometimes that's the only treatment that's available for the pain. And it is just so reviving. So I will miss that, and I will miss my garden, because people make this joke, I'm a bit of a real Disney princess, and it's specifically Sleeping Beauty they refer to, which is probably quite true also with my illness. I sleep a lot, but it's all the birds I have in the garden that I come to the bird feeder, and I have squirrels who break into the shed and steal the bird food, and I have a fox who comes and is quite friendly. She's called Nibbles. She's a vixen. And yeah, so just the insects and everything, and my beans are growing. And for the first time in 3 years, I managed to get black Welsh heritage beans to grow, because they're south-facing and it's too hot for them. And for the first time I have them. So I hope that the person who's looking after my house when I'm away is watering them, because I'm looking forward to having them.
Perfect. And aside from when you're performing your show in Edinburgh, what are you looking forward to doing? Not necessarily the Fringe, but more like sightseeing.
So I've actually been to Edinburgh a few times, and I've seen a lot of the places already. So I really like Holyrood House. There's two things I really would like to do. I would like to see the Kelpies. So my show finishes early, because of the venue I'm in. So the Opera Divas the Boudoir finishes on the 22nd, but I'm doing a female composer showcase for free on the Free Fringe, and that is in the evening. So, and also only 4 days a week. So my plan is to go and see the Kelpies. I really want to see up the Kelpies and go a bit hiking. And I would like to go up to Arthur's Seat. The last time I was there, last year, it was very hot, and it was I wasn't there long enough. I only came to see shows. So this is on my list, and maybe do some sea swimming as well.
That sounds amazing. So, then my next question is sort of a bit different. So, if you took over programming a venue, like say the Pleasance, what would you choose? What sort of shows would you choose?
So I have actually curated festivals, and it depends very much on the venue. So if you say specific the Pleasance, now that has obviously a certain reputation, and you would try to follow what they've been doing, and then just fit in that program. But if you say, for example, they put up a big tent next to Holyrood House and say, this is a new Fringe venue, what would you put in? I would definitely try to do a quirky mix of things, and I would like to have it a space that shows visual art, or like sculptures or something like that, paintings. So while you're in your auditorium, you also have art around you that is, hanging on the walls. Then have music of different kind, for example, world music, bands from different parts of the world, but also maybe bands that are actually based in the UK but play music from different parts of the world. That would be something I would like to do. I would like to get, of course, plays in that are interesting, different. I would focus on mature women, because we're getting shortchanged. Women are just not, especially women over 35, are sort of seen like, oh, we don't exist. So I would like to do that. I would like to have a bit of circus, and I think I would like to do a program where bring artists from different disciplines together and say, okay, you need to work on a piece together and bring all your skills, because I believe very much in putting people together. And I actually did try many years ago to create that sort of thing, but it's very hard. And 20 years ago, the time wasn't right. But I think maybe people are a bit more open-minded about these things.
I'll definitely. It's really hard. It's really hard to like sort of with the Fringe. All like I don't know how to put this. All like performances is good. There's always an audience at the Fringe. It's not like you're just taking it to your local theatre. There is always an audience for like plays, comedy, like musicals, everything. So it's great that the Fringe sort of is open to everybody, and everybody can. It's getting more and more accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I find there's certain things that I really struggle with. So I would have liked to have a caption performance or like BSL performance. Um, I haven't got the funding for it. There is no funding available, and that's a huge problem. And I think that should be made available. They offered to train us on the captioning um, program, and we could borrow a captioning sort of system for one of our shows, and I absolutely welcome that. The problem is I'm literally a one man show or a one woman show. I mean, I personally always describe it as a it's the whole setup is just me. Everything is me. And that has to do with finances. I can't afford to pay someone else as much as I would love to and as much as it would help me with my disability. Um, so you need a second person for the captioning to work. And I've been sort of asking, oh, could someone be free to buddy up? Someone who does a show at a different time, and I do yours and you do mine. And that's not happening. And I wish there was a forum for accessibility. Another problem is also what's access. So with my disability, I struggle with access a lot because it's not a tick box exercise. And people are so trained now. Oh, I tick a box and then I've done it. And that is not the truth because my condition, I've got an ME and fibromyalgia, ME being sort of the main condition. And to me, it's the main condition because that's the one with all the symptoms. And I have over 100 symptoms across the whole board, from respiratory to skeletal, cardio. So all that sort of stuff is really, really affected a digestive system. So my daily symptoms changed drastically and can change within an hour. So I might be fine now. In half an hour, I'm lying down and screaming in pain. So that means you cannot provide universal access to me. You need to have an open ear, and we need to have an open ear to the individual. And that's not happening at the moment. And we have that with neurodiversity. So I'm trying to make accessible performances. And I said, oh, you need to provide, like a breakout room and this and that. And I said, well, that is not going to happen because that is not how the Fringe is set up, and that's not how the Fringe works. And it should be on the promoters to provide that, not on a performer who rents a room for an hour. So that is one problem. The other thing is most of the people who watch my show might not need a breakout room because you don't go to an opera show if you have problems with loud noises. But I'm neurodiverse and I like opera and I know what I let myself in for. And I think sometimes, and this is what I said to the access people at the Fringe, I think I would welcome people to contact me and tell me what the problem is and how I can make it better for them. And it's a small venue and I'm not going to sell out because it's opera. And I probably will only have one person who needs special access. I might have two. And I would rather welcome them to come to me and say, oh, can we have a chat? And I'm very willing to do that and see how I can adjust to that, because one size fits all with access doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. We're all individuals and we all have our own problems. And people like I do try to fit in to the world because that's the only way we can exist. And it is nice when people come towards us, but we also need to communicate our needs, and there are places I can't communicate my needs to.
Yeah. It's just it's it's really difficult as well because Edinburgh's an old city and all that sort of thing, and like with the funding, a couple of weeks ago I was looking how much it costs, and it costs quite a lot of money. So huge respect to everybody I've interviewed, including you. So that goes in. This goes into my next question. Why should audiences book your show?
Give it a go. I mean, it's literally just, it's just before lunch. It's You will get something out of it. I mean, I've done it as a recital before, not as an actual show, and I've done different things, and people always got something out of it. And that's the point of opera, is to get everyone to get something out of it. So it is if you've never been to opera, you will just get a variety of classical music. It's not just opera, it's operetta, something that is more musical. Like you say, there is a crossover. You know,
Yeah.
Tisori, for example, wrote for many, many years musical, and she's currently showing in Dublin with Fun Home, but she also did Blue, which was at the ENO this year. So there is a bit of crossover, and like if you go to early, what I would describe the closest to early musicals in Germany, they were still called operetta. So, you know, like the Weiße Rössl, which is sort of a bit of a crossover. So if you're just interested, go. If you are footloose and fancy free, just go and have a look. And the other one I'm doing is obviously at a free Fringe, so it doesn't cost you anything, and it's at 10 o'clock at night. So go to see that. If and it's showcasing female composers, so they have been totally ignored for 100 years, and I think it's very interesting to bring. And that's the only reason why they have been ignored, not because they're not good, but because they're females.
Yeah, I agree. It's just there's more that can be done to make this world exclusive, and I appreciate what you're doing. It's making like people understand like there can be composers, actors, actresses, everybody, male or female, trans, what have you. The just give it a chance. That's all I can say is give it a chance because there's always something for everybody.
I mean, another thing is with the show, if you love opera and you know opera, come along and see what I've done with it. Because the whole thing is designed. Originally, the idea was so I love opera, and then I get people who've never been and want to go. And sometimes people come up to me and say, "Oh, there's this opera gala. Do you want to come along?" And I think, "Okay, I'll come along." And every single time, these opera galas are quite naff and often of not very good quality in from an artistic point of view, or sometimes even the singing is quite bad. But it's sort of very chocolate advert kind. You know, it's oh sophistication because we have a bit of opera. And I'm sorry, if you look at an opera like Tiefland, it talks about child abuse. You know, that is not sophistication. That is just raw everyday history. You know, I have known people whose child was sexually abused by their father. You know, this is some of the stuff that happens in opera is everyday life to people.
Mm.
Like, and Marta was, for example, you know, Marta's the character in Tiefland who is abused um, by a more powerful man, especially in this day and age. I think it's an interesting opera. It should be done more often. And the guy who sort of rescues her is quite clearly on the neurodiverse. I mean, I would describe him as an autistic person, but it was written at a time where that term didn't exist. So you look at operas and you think you can find different people. So if you interested in opera, come and see what I've done with it because I think you will enjoy it. And that was the concept. Someone who loves opera and someone who's never been to an opera both go to this show and they both get something out of it. I think what an opera lover will get out of it is like what I've done with it and just think about it. That's interesting. Oh, that's silly. That's funny. There's some in jokes in
Mm.
there that are just they're just silly, but you only would get that if you know the piece. And it's just a joke. So it's not. There are moments in that show that are quite serious and touching, and it covers depression, for example. And then there are bits that are just silly and funny, and it's a very mixed show.
Perfect. I've got. You might have seen. There's a timer that's come up to say we've just got like 9 minutes left. So
Okay.
if I start wrapping up this meeting, so what are your give me three top tips for surviving the fringe when you're there.
Eating the rainbow. Get yourself a monthly card to the Edinburgh Leisure Centre. So especially like the Commonwealth pool is quite close to the Fringe. It's a lovely pool, 50-meter pool, and it has a little gym. Get that. Also, allow yourself rest time. If you need a nap before or after your show, have it. and have me time. You don't have to see everything. You can have days where you say, okay, I'm only doing my show and nothing else. So allow yourself rest and drink plenty of water and drink no alcohol or little alcohol, and don't do drugs, because the less you do, if you're working as a performer, if you're just an audience member, you do what you like. But if you perform, it's tough. It's tough to be on the stage every day for a month. So look after yourself and be kind to yourself. And if it's your first time at the Fringe and you're a young performer and you think this is my opportunity to see lots of shows, to do lots of networking, whatever you've planned, divide it by half and then divide it again, because it will get very soon too much, and pace yourself. Like literally book just 1 or 2 shows every other day. And I would recommend book maybe a show or two on one day and then have a day off and then just do your own show and then book another. So that you actually have days where you can literally just be in a pajama unless you're on stage.
Perfect, thank you. So what I'm doing with each interview is at the near the end, I ask you if you got a question. I took this from Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. The current interviewee asks the next interviewee a question, but you don't know who it is. So what would your question be?
What do you think about opera?
Okay. Perfect, thank you. I just want to say thank you for your time today. It's been a really nice chat. I will get this edited when I've got some time. Hopefully, it'll be in the next couple of weeks, and I'll put it on all of my socials, and I'll give you links to it and stuff like that. And yeah, let me know how it goes.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and thank you for listening and spending so much time with me.
That's right.
At least now I'm in costume and already ready for my rehearsal.
Yeah, let me know how it goes, and yeah, if you have any press releases that you want sending, like putting on my socials, just email me. I'm sorry about the other email; it got lost. I got sort of like I got 60 people email me.
Don't worry, it happens. I know it's a Fringe. I've had that same problem. Don't worry about it. I just thought I'd just double check because I was rehearsing yesterday and I didn't have my phone there with the email all the time. I will send you the press release for both shows so you get a bit of an idea what's going on. Fantastic.
Perfect. I hope you have a lovely time, and I will see you very soon.
Thank you. Take care. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.